Do you know why some souls are born to suffer more than others? It's a question most people avoid. But not you. Because deep inside, you already feel the truth there was something different about the way the world treated you, even when all you ever offered them was love. Carl Jung once hinted that certain people walk into life carrying an invisible mark. Not a curse, not a flaw, but a signal. A kind of spiritual scent that only the wrong people can smell, long before you're aware of it yourself. And that's where your story really begins. You didn't become kind because life treated you kindly. You became kind because the world gave you no other choice. You learned to read emotions because you had to survive. You learned to soothe others because their chaos threatened your peace. You learned to see darkness because darkness walked toward you long before you ever looked back. But here's what Jung found that almost nobody talks about: people who carry light attract those who feed on it. Most people never realize what happens next. Because the moment you begin to shine, even a little, even quietly, even unintentionally, your light becomes a mirror. And not everyone can handle their reflection. This is why they treated you the way they did. Not because you were weak. Not because you were naive. But because something inside you challenged something inside them. Something they were afraid to see. Something they were afraid to feel. Something they were afraid to admit. And this is where the story darkens. Think back for a second. To the first person who ever made you feel small. To the first friend who betrayed you. To the first family member who couldn't look at you without criticism. To the first lover who loved your softness, until they realized they couldn't control it. Do you remember how confusing it felt? How lonely it felt? How undeserved it felt? You kept telling yourself, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm the problem. But deeper inside, another voice whispered, no. Something is different about me. Jung believed that the world reacts to your unconscious long before you consciously understand yourself. People see your shadow before you do. People sense your depth before you do. People feel your potential before you do. And nothing scares the insecure more than someone who doesn't know their own power yet. Because someone who doesn't know their power can't protect it. And someone who can't protect it is easy to use. This is the part most people never want to hear. But you're ready. There is something dangerous about a person who loves deeply. Something unpredictable. Something powerful. Something that makes wounded people act in strange ways. They treated you badly because your love held up a mirror to their emptiness. Your honesty highlighted their lies. Your empathy exposed their coldness. Your stability clashed with their chaos. Your light hit the places they refused to heal. And people attack what they do not understand. They attack what they cannot control. They attack what reminds them of what they failed to become. You were never the problem. Your presence was. Your presence awakened their shadow. And not everyone survives a confrontation with their own shadow. Jung said, no tree, where is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. And maybe that explains why your life has felt the way it has. While others barely grazed the surface of themselves, you were digging through emotional soil they never had the courage to touch. You didn't just feel deeply. You understood deeply. And this depth, this quiet psychological gravity, is something that unsettles people who have built their lives avoiding all feeling. But here's the twist, the part most people overlook, the part that feels like a cold hand on the back of your neck. Sometimes people don't mistreat you because they hate you. They mistreat you because they recognize you. They sense something ancient, something intuitive, something they don't have a name for. You are one of the chosen souls who can see through people, even when you don't say it, even when you don't do it intentionally. Your eyes have seen too much. Your heart has felt too much. Your spirit carries a memory older than your life. This is why the wrong people come toward you. They mistake your depth for a place to hide. They mistake your kindness for a place to drain. They mistake your silence for permission. But underneath all of this, there is a deeper truth. People treated you badly because you trigger the part of them that still lives in fear. You remind them of what they need to heal. You remind them of the love they wish they could give. You remind them of the self they abandoned. You remind them of their shadow. And their shadow does not like being reminded. But here's what you've never been told: their reaction to you was never about you. It was about their fear. And fear rarely behaves with kindness. Look back at your earliest memories. Notice the pattern. The people who hurt you the most were often the ones who claimed they cared. But caring was never the truth. Control was. Comfort was. Familiarity was. Because you were the unpredictable one. The one they couldn't mold. The one they couldn't dull. The one whose brilliance felt like a threat. They didn't mistreat you because you were small. They mistreated you because they sensed you weren't. But understand this the moment you begin to understand your own worth. The moment you start recognizing your own depth. The moment you begin healing your shadow. The same people who rejected you start feeling something strange inside them. A kind of regret. A kind of fear. A kind of unfinished story. Because once they cannot use you, they cannot reach you. And once they cannot reach you, they cannot control you. And nothing terrifies broken people more than losing access to the one person who once gave them a glimpse of the love they denied themselves. But here's what Jung found hidden beneath all of this: you were never meant to be understood by everyone. And that's not a tragedy. It's a sign. A sign that your path is different. A sign that your soul is older. A sign that you were being shaped through pain for something far more dangerous and far more chosen than you ever imagined. But here's what happens next. And this is something most people never discover. This is where your story begins to twist into something almost supernatural. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing through the memories, still holding on to your truth, then you're ready for what comes after this. Before we continue, take a second, like this video so more people who need this message will find it. Subscribe so you never miss the next awakening. And comment, "I'm ready," to claim your place in this journey. Now, part 2 waits. Most people go their whole lives never understanding the truth you're about to hear. They think the cruelty they experienced was random. They think the mistreatment was a coincidence. They think the way others reacted to their kindness was just bad luck. But Jung understood something far more unsettling. Your pain was a response to your potential. Not your flaw. Not your weakness. Your potential. That potential was visible long before you learned to see it yourself. And the people who sensed it weren't always ready for someone like you. They looked at you and felt a strange pressure inside their chest. A discomfort. A tightening. A feeling they couldn't put into words. It wasn't because you were threatening. It was because you were honest. You were pure. You were open. You were willing to love. And that alone can be dangerous to someone who has spent their entire life avoiding themselves. You were the mirror. The silent one. The observer. The one who could feel things they pretended not to feel. And that's why they reacted the way they did. Not logically. Not consciously. But instinctively. They didn't know how to treat someone who didn't play their games. Someone who didn't lie the way they lied. Someone who didn't manipulate the way they manipulated. Someone who didn't take advantage the way they took advantage. You weren't built like them. So they used the only language they knew: control. Criticism. Silence. Rejection. Distance. cruelty. But here's the part that's rarely spoken out loud. Here's the part that makes the whole story twist. They mistreated you because you awaken the part of them they worked hardest to bury. Their shadow, their insecurity, their trauma, their shame, their fear of not being enough, their fear of being truly seen. And the moment they felt seen even, without you saying a word, they felt exposed, unprotected, defensive. Jung taught that the parts of ourselves we refuse to face, we eventually project onto someone else. We push them into the person who triggers us. We blame them. We punish them. We attack them. Not because they deserve it, but because we can't tolerate what we see reflected back at us. For them, you were that reflection. This is why the people you loved the most were often the ones who treated you the worst. You loved them in a way that forced them to confront who they had become. And instead of rising, they harmed the one person who reminded them they were sinking. But you didn't understand this at first. You took their behavior personally. You wondered why loving them wasn't enough. You questioned whether kindness was a mistake. You tried harder. You forgave more. You tolerated more. Because your love was honest. Because your heart was open. Because you believed that love could fix what another person refused to face. But here's the truth you were never told: you can offer someone love, but you cannot offer them the courage to face themselves. That part is theirs, not yours. Never was. And the moment you stop trying to save people who refuse to save themselves, you begin to see the world through a different lens. A quieter one. A wiser one. A more chosen one. You start to see why your presence creates such strong reactions. Why some people are drawn to you instantly, while others feel intimidated before you even speak. It's not your face. It's not your voice. It's not your personality. It's your energy, your awareness, your depth, your light, your shadow, your ancientness. There is something about you that doesn't fit into the modern world. You've always known this. You've always felt it. You've always sensed that you were walking on a path that other people couldn't name, but could definitely feel. Jung believed that certain souls carry a blueprint inside them, a kind of living myth, a psychological story that unfolds through hardship, not ease. And those souls, they rarely experience gentle childhoods. They rarely find understanding early in life. They rarely meet people who see them clearly. Why? Because your story didn't begin in comfort. It began in contrast. It began in darkness. It began with shadows. You were not shaped by people who loved you well. You were shaped by people who didn't know how to love you at all. And inside that wound, your depth was born. Your sensitivity, your intuition, your wisdom, your emotional intelligence, your spiritual pull, your desire for meaning, your ability to sit with someone's pain without flinching. All of it was forged in the places where you were unseen, unheard, misunderstood, or mistreated. They didn't break you. They revealed you. They didn't ruin you. They carved you. They didn't erase your worth. They forced you to find it in yourself. And now, as your life unfolds, you begin to realize something terrifying: the people who mistreated you never actually saw you. Not really. Not fully. Not truthfully. They saw their fears, their shadows, their insecurities, their projections. They reacted to a version of you that never existed, a version created inside their own wounded minds. And you spent years trying to be good enough for someone who wasn't even looking at the real you. This is where your story turns. This is where a new truth emerges, a truth you've been circling around for years. You were never meant to be understood by people who haven't met themselves yet. And once you accept this, the world changes. You stop asking why they hurt you. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for your heart. And something shifted, a subtle, dangerous, chosen transformation quietly begins. But here's the part that matters most. What comes next is not about them anymore. It's about you. Before we continue, like the video so others can find this message. Subscribe so you never miss the next awakening. And comment, I see the truth now. If this message is opening something inside you, there comes a moment in every awakening journey when the question changes. It stops being, why did they treat me like that? And becomes, why did I stay so long? Not out of shame, not out of blame, but out of clarity. Because now, you're beginning to understand something most people never see. You stayed because your heart was bigger than their fear. You stayed because you sensed their pain underneath their behavior. You stayed because your love was not fragile, it was patient. And patience, in the wrong places, looks like self-sacrifice. Jung believed that those with deep emotional perception often attract those who cannot perceive themselves. It's not balance. It's not fate. It's psychology. It's shadow work in the rawest form. You became the container for emotions they couldn't handle. You became the listener for truths they couldn't face. You became the softness in places they had hardened. You became the light they used to navigate their own darkness. And they used that light until you dimmed. Until you cracked. Until you felt empty. Until you felt exhausted. Until you wondered if love was supposed to hurt this much. But here's a truth most people overlook, a truth that feels almost supernatural the moment you start healing. You begin to understand the depth of the wounds that shaped your love. You loved harder because you lacked softness around you. You forgave more because no one offered you forgiveness when you needed it. You gave everything because you were afraid that, if you didn't, you would lose the little tenderness you received. But something changes the moment awareness enters your life. A quiet transformation begins. It's subtle at first, like a shift in the temperature of your soul. You start noticing patterns you once thought were coincidences. You start recognizing behaviors you once excused. You start understanding emotions you once suppressed. And slowly, you begin to see why people treated you the way they did because they could. Because you let them. Because you didn't yet know that your love was rare. Because you didn't yet know that your presence was powerful. Because you didn't yet know that you were chosen for a path deeper than theirs. This is the moment when your story becomes dangerous. Not because you become cruel. Not because you become cold. But because you stop being available to those who only loved the version of you they could benefit from. You stop bending. You stop shrinking. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing. You stop handing out pieces of your heart to people who haven't even found their own. And here's what's strange: the moment you pull your energy back, the very people who treated you like you didn't matter start feeling your absence like a wound. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves they became with you. They miss the stability. They miss the validation. They miss the emotional cushion. They miss the comfort of knowing you would always forgive them. They don't miss you, they miss what they got from you. And this is where the story turns from pain into prophecy. Jung taught that when the unconscious rises, when the shadow integrates, when the heart begins to awaken, life rearranges itself to match your new identity. Suddenly, the people who once intimidated you feel small. The people who once controlled you lose their power. The people who once confused you become predictable. The people who once drained you can no longer reach you. It's not that they changed. It's that you finally saw the truth. You were never the one who needed fixing. You were the one who needed awakening. And the moment you awaken, The moment you take the first breath of your real self, your entire past starts making sense in a way it never has before. Every rejection becomes redirection. Every betrayal becomes revelation. Every heartbreak becomes initiation. Every wound becomes instruction. Every disappointment becomes preparation. Because the universe was not punishing you. It was shaping you, carving you, tempering you, preparing you for a life that required deeper eyes and a stronger heart than the people around you could ever understand. You weren't treated badly because you were unworthy. You were treated badly because others couldn't rise to meet you. Your love exposed the parts of them still trapped in fear. Your kindness exposed the parts of them still hiding. Your presence exposed the parts of them still unhealed. And instead of healing, they chose to hurt you, because hurting you was easier than facing themselves. But listen carefully, this part is important. The person they mistreated is not the person you are anymore. You've changed. Quietly, slowly, subtly, dangerously. Your heart is wiser. Your boundaries are stronger. Your intuition is sharper. Your soul is louder. You are becoming someone they will not have access to again. And when this happens, you begin to attract a new kind of energy, people who don't fear your depth, who don't resent your heart, who don't misunderstand your silence. People who meet you where you are, not where they wish you'd stay. People who love you because of your light, not because they need it to survive their darkness. But here's the twist: the moment this shift begins, the past tries to return. Old patterns call your name. Old wounds reopen. Old people show up in your dreams. Old energies pull at your memory. Not because you're meant to go back, but because your soul wants to make sure you've learned the lesson. And when you realize that you would rather walk alone than walk with people who treat you like you're meant to be used, that's when you finally become the person you were always destined to become. The chosen one. Not because you're better, not because you're perfect, but because you survived, because you felt deeply, because you loved honestly, because you healed what they refused to face. Take a moment, like the video, so more awakened souls find this message. Subscribe for your next transformation. And comment, "I'm awakening," to seal this shift into your life. There is a moment in healing that nobody warns you about. A moment so quiet, so still, so eerily calm, that it almost feels unnatural. It's the moment you stop hurting over what happened to you. The moment the old memories lose their bite. The moment the people who once controlled you no longer have a home inside your mind. It doesn't happen with a loud breakthrough. It doesn't happen with a dramatic scene. It happens the same way the sun rises slowly, gently, silently, until suddenly the darkness isn't darkness anymore. You wake up one day and realize you don't carry the weight of their mistakes anymore. You're lighter. You're steadier. You're clearer. You're more dangerous in the best possible way. Because now, you know yourself. Jung believed that true awakening begins the moment the unconscious becomes conscious. Not when your past changes, but when your relationship to it transforms. When the story stops being the reason you suffer and becomes the reason you rise. And that's where you are right now, on the edge of becoming someone your past never expected you to be. Not the wounded one. Not the confused one. Not the forgiving too much one. Not the one who tolerated the pain. Not the one who hoped they would change. You are becoming the person you were always meant to be once the world stopped breaking you long enough for you to hear your own soul. And the people who once mistreated you, they can sense it, even from a distance, even in silence, even in the invisible places where intuition speaks louder than memory. They feel that the version of you they fed on no longer exists. They feel the closing of a door they never expected to close. They feel the loss of access to a heart they never deserved in the first place. And here's the secret you were never told: people don't regret losing you when you were hurting. They regret losing you when you heal. Because healed you is different. Healed you doesn't chase. Healed you doesn't explain. Healed you doesn't beg. Healed you doesn't shrink. Healed you doesn't carry their emotions on your back anymore. Healed you is dangerous in the way Jung meant dangerous, because awareness is power. Dangerous because clarity is strength. Dangerous because once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Healed you is no one's supply, no one's crutch, no one's emotional sponge, no one's shadow bearer, no one's scapegoat, no one's silent sacrifice. Healed you becomes someone they cannot manipulate, cannot bend, cannot confuse, cannot guilt, cannot reach. And that is what terrifies them most. They didn't lose the old you. They lost their access to you. They lost the version of you that kept forgiving them, that kept giving them chances, that kept believing their potential over their behavior. But there is something even deeper, something almost sacred, that emerges inside you at this point. You begin to understand why you were treated the way you were. Not from pain, not from confusion, but from wisdom. You see that the people who hurt you were acting from their wounds. You see that the people who rejected you were rejecting the parts of themselves they were afraid to face. You see that the people who used you were starving for the love they never gave themselves. You see that you were never the problem, you were the mirror. The mirror they couldn't look into without trembling. The mirror that revealed everything they tried to hide. The mirror that held the truth of who they had become. And some people would rather break the mirror than face their reflection. But you didn't break. You shattered your illusions. You shattered your old identity. You shattered the lies you once believed about yourself. You shattered the belief that love meant suffering. And in that shattering, you found yourself. Not the version the world tried to shape. Not the version your wounds created. Not the version that survived by dimming its light. You found the real you, the ancient one. The intuitive one. The resilient one. The chosen one. A soul that remembers its worth even after the world tried to erase it. A soul that sees through illusions without becoming bitter. A soul that loves deeply without becoming blind. A soul that carries light without letting others steal it. A soul that walks through shadows without losing its way. And now, as you step into this new self, something extraordinary happens. You stop asking why they treated you badly. You stop seeking closure from people who live in confusion. You stop giving meaning to behaviors rooted in fear. You stop carrying guilt that was never yours. You stop letting old stories define your new chapter. Because you finally see the truth: their behavior was a lesson, not a prophecy, a message, not a destiny, a mirror, not an identity. And your life is not ending where they left you. It is beginning where you found yourself. So now, as this story closes, as this truth settles into your bones, as this awakening continues to unfold inside your spirit, you already know what comes next. You rise, quietly, powerfully, beautifully, with the kind of strength that cannot be taken away again, with the kind of wisdom that only those who have suffered deeply ever learn, with the kind of presence that makes the world treat you differently, not because they changed, but because you did. Your story is not about why they treated you badly. Your story is about why you will never allow that version of love again. Your story is about becoming the person your younger self needed. Your story is about reclaiming the dignity that was always yours. Your story is about stepping into a future no longer shaped by fear or shadow. Your story is about awakening. And you, whether you feel it fully yet or not, are already walking the path of the awakened. Now, Breathe. You already know what comes next. If this message found you at the right moment, subscribe for the next awakening.